Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "We live in succession, in division. Meantime, within humanity is the soul of the whole, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal One." Please stay with us for Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, The Oversoul. Hello and welcome, most endearing viewers. I am Irene in Ocean City, New Jersey, USA. The American people in the United States wish forever peace of the world. In today's episode, selection from Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson's essays, first series, The Oversoul, Part 2 of 2, we present to you the contemplations of the Saint of Concord. Ralph Waldo Emerson was an American essayist, lecturer, philosopher, and poet who led the Transcendentalist movement of the mid-19th century. Emerson wrote on a number of subjects, never espousing fixed philosophical tenets, but developing certain ideas such as individuality, freedom, the ability for mankind to realize almost anything, and the relationship between the soul and the surrounding world. He remains among the linchpins of the American Romantic movement, and his work has greatly influenced the thinkers, writers, and poets that followed him. When asked to sum up his work, he said his central doctrine was the infinitude of the private man. Emerson believed that all things are connected to God and, therefore, all things are divine. His views, the basis of Transcendentalism, suggested that God does not have to reveal the truth, but that the truth could be intuitively experienced directly from nature. When asked his religious belief, Emerson stated, "I am more of a Quaker than anything else. I believe in the still small voice, and that voice is Christ within us." We know that all spiritual being is in us. A wise old proverb says, "God comes to see us without a bell." That is, as there is no screen or ceiling between our heads and the infinite heavens, so is there no bar or wall in the soul. Where humanity, the effect, ceases, and God, the cause, begins, the walls are taken away. We lie open on one side to the deeps of spiritual nature, to the attributes of God. Love, freedom, these natures no one ever got above, but they tower over us, and most in the moment when our interests tempt us to wound them. The sovereignty of this nature whereof we speak is made known by its independence from those limitations which circumscribe us on every hand. The soul circumscribes all things. As I have said, it contradicts all experience. In like manner, it abolishes time and space. The influence of the senses has, in most people, overpowered the mind to that degree that the walls of time and space have come to look real and insurmountable. And to speak with levity of these limits is, in the world, the sign of insanity. Yet time and space are but inverse measures of the force of the soul. The spirit sports with time, can crowd eternity into an hour, or stretch an hour into eternity. We are often made to feel that there is another youth and age, than that which is measured from the year of our natural birth. Some thoughts always find us young and keep us so. Such a thought is the love of the universe and eternal beauty. Every man parts from that contemplation with a feeling that it rather belongs to ages than to mortal life. The least activity of the intellectual powers redeems us in a degree from the conditions of time. In sickness, in languor, give us a strain of poetry or a profound sentence, and we are refreshed. Or produce a volume of Plato or Shakespeare, or remind us of their names, and instantly we come into a feeling of longevity. See how the deep divine thought reduces centuries and millennia and makes itself present through all ages. Is the teaching of Christ less effective now than it was when first his mouth was opened? The emphasis of facts and persons in my thought has nothing to do with time, and so always the soul's scale is one. The scale of the senses and the understanding is another. Before the revelations of the soul, time, space, and nature shrink away. In common speech, we refer all things to time, as we habitually refer the immensely sundered stars to one concave sphere. And so we say that the judgment is distant or near, that the millennium approaches, that a day of certain political, moral, social reforms is at hand, and the like. When we mean that in the nature of things, one of the facts we contemplate is external and fugitive, and the other is permanent and connate with the soul. The things we now esteem fixed shall, one by one, detach themselves like ripe fruit from our experience and fall. The wind shall blow them none knows whither. The landscape, the figures, Boston, London, are facts as fugitive as any institution past or any whiff of mist or smoke. And so is society, and so is the world. After its own law, and not by arithmetic, is the rate of its progress to be computed. The soul's advances are not made by gradation, such as can be represented by motion in a straight line, but rather by ascension of state, such as can be represented by metamorphosis, from the egg, or reproductive cell, to the worm, from the worm to the fly. The growths of genius are of a certain total character that does not advance the elect individual, first over John, then Adam, then Richard, and give to each the pain of discovered inferiority, but by every throe of growth the person expands there where he works, passing at each pulsation classes, populations of people. With each divine impulse, the mind rends the thin rinds of the visible and finite, and comes out into eternity, and inspires and expires, or respires, its air. It converses with truths that have always been spoken in the world, and becomes conscious of a closer sympathy with Zeno or Arian than with persons in the house. This is the law of moral and of mental gain. The simple rise as by specific levity, not into a particular virtue, but into the region of all the virtues. They are in the spirit which contains them all. The soul requires purity, but purity is not it. Requires justice, but justice is not that. Requires beneficence, but is somewhat better. So that there is a kind of descent and accommodation felt when we leave speaking of moral nature to urge a virtue which it enjoins. To the well-born child, all the virtues are natural and not painfully acquired. Speak to his heart, and the man becomes suddenly virtuous. Within the same sentiment is the germ of intellectual growth, which obeys the same law. Those who are capable of humility, of justice, of love, of aspiration, stand already on a platform that commands the sciences and arts, speech and poetry, action and grace. For whoso dwells in this moral beatitude already anticipates those special powers which are prized so highly. We have come from our remote station on the circumference instantaneously to the center of the world, where, as in the closet of God, we see causes and anticipate the universe, which is but a slow effect. One mode of the divine teaching is the incarnation of the Spirit in a form, in forms like my own. I live in society with persons who answer to thoughts in my own mind or express a certain obedience to the great instincts to which I live. I see its presence to them. I am certified of a common nature, and these other souls, these separated selves, draw me as nothing else can. They stir in me the new emotions we call passion. Persons are supplementary to the primary teaching of the soul. In youth, we are mad for persons. Childhood and youth see all the world in them. But the larger experience of man discovers the identical nature appearing through them all. Persons themselves acquaint us with the impersonal. In all conversation between two persons, tacit reference is made, as to a third party, to a common nature. That third party, or common nature, is not social. It is impersonal, is God. For more details, please visit the Project Gutenberg, the first provider of free ebooks at gutenberg.org. It has been a joy to have you with us for today's selection from Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson's essays, first series, The Oversoul, Part 2 of 2.